count down. So we're gonna keep going because we gotta catch up in terms of time. So my name is Adolfo Abreu, and I'm the Housing Campaigns Director of Oakland, New York. Yeah. Thank you. So let's get right into it so that way we can have the conversation that we want to have. Folks are good? Yeah. All right. So raise your hand. Who here has ever heard the term social housing? Now, if I were to give you $1 billion, can you confidently answer what that is? Raise your hand. I see some hands, some people who are confident. Well, jokes on yeah, I don't have $1 billion, but what I can offer is for us to learn together what that word means. All right? So folks good with that? So I'm gonna keep on going. So I'm gonna read this out loud. I know you might not be able to see, right? But when we say the word social housing, it means it is a vision, right? A vision, something to fight for, something to get, something that obviously we're not getting right now, right? So when we say social housing, it means permanently affordable housing, right? That's clear? Yeah. Right? It means that it's publicly owned and that it's not some corporation or some landlord you've never met before who's only collecting your money and not even investing it in the building. Publicly owned meaning that we own it. Does that sound good? Yeah. Meaning that it's democratically managed by the people who live there, right? Because if it's owned by us, we know how to fix it, right? It's different when it's us. It's different when it's our people, right? And not some person who lives another borough or maybe one super who's like managing 5 buildings at the same time because the landlord is doing budget cuts. No. What if it looks like if I live in my building, me and my fellow people who live in this building are making the decisions on how to improve and fix our building, and we are the ones who own it. Does that sound good? Yeah. All right. And we want to decommodify it, right? Because who owns housing right now?
Multi-billionaires.
Or real estate, right? And more often than not, our politicians, who do they listen to? Yeah, those folks. When in actuality, they should be listening to who? Us. Exactly, us, the people in the room. And we want to make sure that housing is not for profit. Housing is to make sure that we have a roof over our head so we can stay in the communities that we've learned to grow and love, whether our family members who've also grown into in those communities. It gives us an opportunity to have that intergenerational wealth, right? Because sometimes, if I live in a rent-stabilized or rent-controlled apartment, and it's my time to move on, maybe I want my kids to also pay that same amount, right? And not have to go out into the market and pay $3,000, $4,000 of rent. That is not right. So that is the vision for when we say social housing, right? It is housing that is for us. Because at the end of the day, it's built and guaranteed by us. So that sound good for you all? Yeah. All right. And we also want to know, right, that housing needs to be energy efficient, right? We know that the world is getting hotter. The climate, because of our failure to save our planet, right, is becoming dangerous and dangerous for us. And we need to make sure that our buildings also have that same level of protection for us. Right? Because some of us live in buildings where as soon as it gets cold outside, you might as well be sleeping outside because the boiler doesn't work. Right? Or there's not enough insulation. So what does it actually mean to guarantee that not only are we building the type of housing that no matter the weather outside, we are good inside. Right? And making sure that we have those retrofits and whatever infrastructure that we need, because to be honest, some of our buildings are old, right? No shame to them. Some of our buildings are 100 years old, right? And they need some tender love and care, right? So we gotta make sure that within that vision, we're upgrading those buildings. Does that make sense? And that we're having clean energy, that we're making sure that there's weatherization, meaning that the energy that we are consuming is not driving up the bill. There's energy efficient solutions, so that way we don't have to keep paying money to Con Edison and any other companies that are just continually increasing the price. Does that sound good? Y'all still with me? Right? And we know that we got these hurricanes and these floods, right? So we want to make sure that when we say the word resilient, that our buildings can stand and that they don't topple over, right? So we want to make sure that that is important within that vision. And so to sum it up, right, it's like, when we say social housing, right, it's like, it is housing that is energy efficient, climate resilient, and permanently affordable, meaning that there's not all of a sudden these rent increases, right? Because someone wants to get your money. Forever owned by a public institution or a non-profit that's accountable to the folks who live in that building, and that ensures, again, there's democratic community control, either through a tenant union, tenant association, or an organization. So does that sound good? Yeah. That sound good? Yeah. And that's something you're like, I want to fight for that. Yeah. Right? Because sometimes we use these big words and you're like, well, what we gonna do? Right? We gonna talk about these definitions. It sounds beautiful, right? So we're taking action. And sometimes in taking action, right? I'll go back to that slide real quick. We have a platform, meaning that there's things that people who, whether it's every 2 years or every 4 years, they come up in here and try to get your vote. There's certain things that they can do. And now we got some good ones, right, who are with us. They listen to what you're saying and are fighting for it. Sometimes their own colleagues ain't doing it, right? So we gotta make sure that we're supporting the people who are supporting us and supporting them to push the people that's not supporting us to support us. If that makes any sense. So, in our platform, what it means to do social housing, it means that we want to fund the creation of permanently affordable housing. Not these skyscrapers that we're seeing right now. They're not really affordable for folks who are in need. Whether you are rent burdened right now and are housed, or someone that's in need of housing, we need to make housing for you, not for some real estate company that wants to get a tax write-off and that they can pat themselves in the back because they scammed the government out of hundreds of $1 million. When those hundreds of $1 million should be going to who? To the community, not to these people to get rich off of us. Next, we got to build supportive housing. Because you know, for a lot of our folks with different complexities, whether it's mental health complexities, or just other type of like medical needs, or stuff that they need, right? We need to build a type of housing that has on-site services to be able to provide support for our folks, and not to criminalize them, right? Because we can never ticket and incarcerate and find our way out of homelessness. The only solution to homelessness is obvious, housing. Next, we want to create, this sounds like a very technical term, but we want to create a social housing development authority. The best way that I can break this down for you is, imagine if there's one agency at the state that its main mission is to create the type of housing that we need, make sure that that housing continues to be permanently affordable and builds it, and that we, as a person, I don't have to go and talk to 5 different city agencies just to get the help that I need. How many of you have experienced that issue? You gotta go to HOA over here, DOB over here, HPD over here. Imagine just one agency that's like, I got you, because this is our responsibility. That's what we're hoping to create. Next, we want to end discrimination of rental applications, right? Because we got voucher holders who have the means to get into an apartment, and we got some landlords denying someone that apartment because of whatever misconception they have about voucher holders. And that is not right. Right? If we have someone in need of an apartment and a place to live, and there's a vacant apartment, we need to cut the red tape and make sure that those folks get access to that apartment. We need to make sure that we have right to counsel, right? And make sure that we have it. Right. We need to perfect right to counsel to make it better, because it's working in New York City, right? But it needs to be much better because it is strained, right? The high caseloads that attorneys are getting, but also We got siblings, family members, who as soon as they step outside the 5 boroughs, they don't have that same protection. So you got landlords in Rochester taking people to court to evict them, and no one in their corner to protect them. So we want to make sure that this is a fundamental right across the state and nationwide. Next, go ahead and clap for that. We want to make sure that we're talking about rent stabilization. We want to keep apartments that right now are extremely affordable, and stop unjust rent increases, because enough is enough.
Yes.
What more? They're asking for us to pay more and more. And for a lot of our folks, that well has dried up. Because the support that we're getting is not increasing, and what they're extracting out of us in terms of the rent is not, no, you good?
Darko, can you please repeat the
Yes.
first part of what you said?
Copy. So rent stabilization, right? We're talking about that. I know you got it. So want to make sure that the apartments are permanently affordable, and we're blocking unjust rent increases. Because every year the rent keeps going up, but our checks are not going up. So the support is not going up. Home stretch. Two more. And we want to make sure that we have protections, right? So in New York State, we want a version of good cause, right? It's not perfect, but we have a defense mechanism for people who are not protected via rent stabilization or rent control to ensure that landlords are not unjustly raising the rents and telling somebody you gotta go tomorrow without any justification as to why they make that decision. So that needs to be statewide and countrywide. And then lastly, I know a lot of you are going to enjoy this, the right to organize. Because the people in power like it when we are not talking up, when we're not saying that ain't right, when we're not holding them accountable to what are the things that we need to do, the things that we need to invest, and the laws that we need to pass. So we need to make sure that we protect the right to organize in your building, in your shelter, wherever it is that you are at. Right to organize is a fundamental human right. And that is something that we got to make sure that is there. But we fight! Right, so the last thing I got to show you real quick is this. When we're talking about social housing, right, you might be like, man, that sounds like a foreign concept, right? Like, that sounds like pie in the sky. I want to challenge you to think, to dream big. Almost all of the things that we have, quote unquote, rights in this country, those didn't exist at a certain point in this history of this country. And it took people who dared to dream, who dared to fight, to ensure that we had the right to housing, right to vote, we had right to transportation, to education. All of the things that right now that we see as a fundamental right, they never gave it to us. We organized for that. Our ancestors organized for that. So I want you to think about that. And there's people in other parts of this world, like Vienna, that have a model of social housing, in which housing is being built for our people, not for profit, right? Not for people who are taking money from the government when it's our money. Because we have to take care of ourselves. That's how we solve the crisis. So, if you are excited for this, I want to hear you say yeah. One more time. Because it is possible, and they will tell you that it is an impossibility. So we're going to do this, and we're going to do this right. So with that, I'm going to pass finally the mic to our facilitators, and they're still in the room, Winsome and Maria, to move us on, so we actually get to doing the good stuff, which is, we have those elected officials that we told you are in the room. They're going to come, answer some questions, and we're going to continue organizing.
Because they must know that housing is a human right.
Secretary, I'm done.
Take one and pass the rest around, please. Candidates for tonight are going to be Assembly Member Emily Gallagher, Assembly Member Farrell Suffren Forrest, Senator Julia Salazar, Council Member
Jennifer Gutierrez.
Jennifer Gutierrez. Council Member Lincoln Register and State Senator Jabari Bridgeport. Also with us is Senator State Assembly Member Doran
Mandani.
Mamdani. Come on, you can do better
green social housing is essential for New York, and how does it align with your vision for addressing the housing crisis? So we're going to pass the mic down. All right?
Hi, I'm Senator Blair Salazar. I represent the 18th, Great East District in North and East Brooklyn, a little bit of Queens and Ridgewood. Green social housing. I'm gonna keep my answer really brief, also because Assemblymember Gallagher was pretty comprehensive. But we have a climate crisis and we have a housing crisis. Both of them are existential, whether existential to you individually, if you do not have a place to live, but also for our planet and our future. And that is why we need green social housing. It really is, it's fundamental.
Hi, I'm Ferris from Forest, Assembly Member for 857. If you don't know where it is,
Mike, you're good.
hello. Can you hear me now? Yes. Hi, I'm Ferris from Forest, and I'm the Assembly Member for right here in Fort Greene, Clintonville. Why I believe in social housing is just simply what we deserve. We need good, quality, union-built housing, and we should have had it since yesterday. So let's get it done.
Prospect Heights, Clinton Hill, Bed-Stuy, Ocean Hill, Brownsville. I also grew up down the street. I grew up in Prospect Heights. And if you know, I see people from the Bronx, from all over New York City. So if this is your first time in this area, if you want to see the failures of private developers, I want you to take a field trip after this and go look at the corner. There's a building called the Axle, where a two-bedroom is $7,000 a month. That corner from the Axle is a giant hole in the ground called Atlantic Yards. There was a bad deal that Michael Bloomberg made 20 years ago with another big developer that was supposed to have affordable housing. The developer, they built the Atlantic.
All right, you got to slow down.
Oh, we got translators.
Come on, let him finish.
You know what? I'll just wrap it up. The developer built the stadium to make money. They built a lot of luxury housing to make money. And then they dipped. The affordable housing has not come. Private developers will not save us. We need social housing.
Justice and environmental justice for decades and decades and decades. So if the people that you elect look like you and are up here right now and are not fighting for that, then we're not doing our job. So it is very much a debt that we are owed to our communities for us to continue to fight for social housing. Yes.
Hello everyone, my name is Imran Mabani. I represent Parks Astoria. The reason why we need green social housing, and specifically Emily's legislation at the state level to bring green social housing, is because we know it can be done. We look at Vienna, we look at Netherlands, we look at Switzerland, we look at examples of how people are allowed and able to live in their own communities. And we have to ask, why not us? Why not us? Because it can be done, the only thing that's missing is political will. This sweater is optional. These shoes are optional. Housing is not optional. No person should be priced out of something that is essential. Housing is essential. And ever since when Farah Soufran Forrest started running for assembly, she told a journalist her secret agenda was for New Yorkers to not have to pay rent. What we understand, which is that housing is non-negotiable, every New Yorker must have it, and this is the way that we bring it forth. And just like Senator Salazar said, we do it while taking action on the climate crisis.
The topic of tonight couldn't be more important. Green social housing is what it's all about. As Sarah said, the two greatest crises we are facing in our city are the climate crisis and the housing. 1/3 of the people in New York City pay a majority of their income in rent. It's crazy. Who can afford that? You can't get by. We have seen how our neighborhoods are changing every single year. In Williamsburg and Greenpoint, where Jen and Juliet and Emily and I represent, we've lost 15,000 Latino residents in the last 15 years. The black population in Brooklyn is shrinking for the first time since the Great Migration. And do you know why? Because we can't afford it. Working people can no longer afford our community. So we need to invest more deeply in affordable housing and social housing, where we have a say in the future of our housing, where we ensure that it's not about profit, but it's about having a place that we can afford to call home permanently. And housing is the single biggest source of carbon emissions in New York. 70% of carbon emissions come from buildings. 70%. So if we're going to save our city, if we're going to save our planet, we have to decarbonize and decarbonize now. And that starts with our housing stock. So green social housing, that is what it's all about. And with Gallagher's legislation, that is what we need to pass and figure out.
The PNC is still on tonight. And I have been so tantalized and tickled and happy and all of that. To go back home to see the rest of it tonight, we gotta cut the applause, okay? Stretch out the applause. And we're asking the politicians, make your answer short.
Quick housekeeping announcement. We also have childcare for those who need it. We have a childcare room in the back. So Cynthia, raising your hand, can lead your children to the child.